the episode. We have some interesting stories for you today. We're going to go ahead and start with our first story, which it's just weird. I think the way the human brain works is very weird. It's a very complicated machine, and anything that's complicated, a little thing, can cause some big problems. Now, there was a woman named Mary. I don't believe that's her real name. This is in... I found this link on Psychiatric Times, and it has everything sourced through there, but it's sourced to medical journals that you would actually have to go and get access to. There was no other links to this, but... So there was a woman named Mary, and she believed that her 9-year-old daughter wasn't her daughter. And I'm not saying it's not biological, that she didn't give birth to her, but that her true daughter was taken away and replaced with this clone, with this doppelganger. She would show up at her daughter's school sometime to pick up her daughter, believing her daughter was there. And when she saw this little girl, she would begin screaming, "Where's my daughter? Who has my daughter? Give me my daughter back." And the little 9-year-old girl would just kind of be stunned. School officials would be like, what's going on? She believes that one time she was driving down the road and she saw her true daughter in a car with someone else. And when they noticed her seeing them, they took off. She would say that sometimes she would be talking to her real daughter, who would show up occasionally. And then when she would turn to talk to her face to face, she would believe not that she had been fooled, but that her real daughter was standing behind her just moments ago. But as she was turning her head, her real daughter was taken away by somebody and immediately replaced with the doppelganger. And eventually, obviously, social services gets involved with this because she's making a scene at school. The little girl is being upset. The little girl said her response to all of this is, "I love my mother except for when she doesn't believe I'm me." And they took the mother and they started to put her on medication, and it wasn't working. They upped it. It wasn't working. They put her in therapy. That wasn't working. And eventually, they did have to remove the daughter from the home because the threat of violence was too high. She was acting out. She truly didn't believe that this was her daughter. What she was diagnosed with was something known as Capgras syndrome. Capgras Delusion is what it is. And it's the inability to recognize people. Now, it's not like facial blindness. There are people who have facial blindness. I personally feel I have a little bit of facial blindness, but it's only towards men, where I can see a woman, especially an attractive woman, but I can see a woman and I'll know, hey, I met her before, but I can walk past the same guy 5 times and go, hey, how you doing? Like, I won't realize that I've talked to that stranger 5 times. It could just be that I'm not particularly paying attention to men, and I'm always paying attention to women. And it could just be that I have other things on my mind. But facial blindness is where you look at someone and you don't know who they are. Your brain can't register their face. You don't recognize them at all. Capgras solution is something much, much different. You look at someone and you recognize them physically, but you don't recognize them emotionally. So you can look at your father and go, this person is 100% physically my father, but that's not my father. It's not as rare as we used to think it was. And what's interesting about it is we don't know what causes it or how it works. But there's been a lot of very interesting theories about it, and it has a lot of interesting parallels to folklore. So one of the big theories that has come out recently, and I thought this was fascinating, was that when there's 2 ways that we remember people. One is by looking at them, and the other one is our skin has an electrical reaction when we're around people that we know and have tight bonds with. And you can measure it. They actually have this device, this galvanic Galvactivator. I was reading about MIT had made one of these things. And it's a glove that will light up. And it will light up whenever your skin becomes more conductive to electricity. And the glove that they made was kind of a basic thing, but it could light up if you saw someone that you'd find attractive or famous. It would light up if you were reading an interesting passage in a book, because your body's basically becoming this electrical battery. But we have a slider version of it, not so advanced where it's lighting up a bulb, where when you see somebody you're unconsciously remembering the emotions that they've given you and their history, their emotional history. So if I can look at my best friend and say, oh, I know her. And then I can also remembering all those good times we spent together. My skin's registering that. And both of those work to create memories. It's not just about the brain. It's about the chemical reaction, the electrical reaction in your body, which is fascinating because, again, we think all of this stuff is brain-related. So one of the theories is that what Capgras Delusion is a breakdown between the brain and basically the skin. There's a breakdown between that. So you're looking at someone and you remember all of the physical memories, but you remember none of the emotional memories. It's like a blank slate. Which is terrifying. If you turned around and saw someone that you knew for the past 20 years and you looked and you had no emotional connection to them whatsoever, you're not getting any sort of read off of them, you don't remember ever sharing any emotional time with this person, but they look exactly like that person, you would think this person's a clone, this person's a robot. You can't really fault if you don't have access to that information. You can't really fault someone for believing that. There's all sorts of theories on what causes this. It normally affects people with schizophrenia, but it also head injuries can do it. Like you can get hit in the head so hard that you develop this delusion, and it usually happens with loved ones. It's not so much just people walking down the street. It's normally people that you do have an emotional connection with. So again, I think that's why the skin electrical impulses plays a big part into it. And it usually happens to women. It's not very common among men. It used to be considered a female disease, but it just now they're just said it's more likely to happen with women. So I don't know. Maybe that has to do with the emotional context of it as well. Maybe if men aren't tying so much emotion into relationships, who knows? I think the idea itself is what's creepy about it is that your brain can trick you into believing something that is not true. Your brain can tell you can be looking and gaining information, and instead of this little conscience on your shoulder, your brain itself is going, that's not her. That's not her. Creepy. And the way that this ties into folklore is there's always been stories about changelings, about if people's babies being taken away at night and being replaced by another baby, and the goal is that you raise this changeling instead of the baby. Your baby's been taken away to fairyland, and you're raising a fake baby. And in those old legends, the way to get your original baby back sometimes is to beat the crap out of the fake baby. There was one old legend where the woman was instructed to put the fake baby into the oven, and then her real child returned. So you have to wonder, were some of these delusions going on back then? And they didn't know what they were. They had no idea how to explain something like this because it's fairly, you wouldn't be able to be like, well, no, it's the way that your skin conducts electricity. They didn't even know what electricity was. And you have to wonder how many times just weird incidences happened throughout history where someone's come home. It's very sudden. You can come home from work and you see your wife and she's not your wife. Nowadays, we have testing and protocol, and the wife would be like, yeah, of course I'm your wife. And after about a week of him insisting he's not your wife, she's not your wife, you would go to a medical professional or the law enforcement or whatever. But, 100, 200 years ago, you'd maybe get a priest involved. And even farther back than that, 1,000 years ago, you would probably just wait it out until he chopped you up with an axe. And why does he care? You're not really his wife. It's creepy. And that person would then go on the rest of their lives going, well, I wonder where my real wife went, as there's like a body rotting in their garden. You just go about your business. I hope my real wife comes home soon. Hey, Johnny, yeah, you got my shoes ready? Oh, where's Johnny? I'm glad that became like a twist ending to like a serial killer running through town with an axe in old England. But that's what it would do. Anyone you had an emotional connection with, eventually that same system may develop, because eventually you go into town and maybe you don't recognize anybody. They've all been taken by clones. Creepy. Human brain is a very advanced machine, but very tricky machine as well. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.